Economy, basically, everything belongs to the state. There's no private ownership of property, what they call a means of production. And so state owns everything, it collects everything that people produces, and they distribute. But it's supposed to be equal distribution, but that's not the case. In reality, the elites get all the priority. Okay, let me see. Okay. That was North Korea. Now I just want to talk about South Korea a little bit because when we talk about peace agreement, there's talk of unification as well. And when we think of unification, we normally think of unified Korea that uses South Korea as a model. Freedom, democracy, liberal democracy, market economy. But there might be a little bit of twist here. There's something called loose level federation or cordial federation. North Korea has its I guess design or term for unification is cordial federation, and cordial is one of the ancient dynasty names. So they want cordial federation, and but recently they talked about low level federation, and what low level federation or loose federation, what that does is, when they talk about giving more power to the regional governments, which sounds fine. It looks like our devolution of power from the federal government to state to cities or counties. That's not what that is. That's not what that is. Okay, I'm told to wrap up, so I'm going to do this very quickly. So the most important thing is I want to highlight the third point. Let's say there's a federation. And South Korea's population is 50 million, North Korea 25 million, so about half. And let's just say that 70% can vote because babies can't vote, right? So let's say 70% of population, and that's 35 million in South Korea, 17.5 in North Korea. This is simple math. Well, in North Korea, everyone votes 100%, and they all vote for one person. There's only one party. So that's going to be Kim Jong-un receiving 100%, and then there are some in South Korea who supports him. So he's going to have that many votes. And in South Korea, you will get, there are like multiple candidates. And voting rate is less than 100%. So last year when Moon Jae-in became president, he received 41% of the votes. And that was very, very high. So let's say one of many candidates gets 41% of the votes. That's about 14 million, which is less than 17.5 million. So under this kind of situation, it's more likely that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would get elected to this federated Korea. So that's sort of what and I just want to show you this because this is, I will achieve without fail the confederation or low-level federation, let's see, through the government power change. And that was surprisingly said by President Moon Jae-in of South Korea. He also said that I will achieve a federation even if I have to change the constitution. And I know we're running out of time, so I just want to show you some of the items that he wanted to change in the Constitution. He put together this committee, and they came up with this in 1 month. And the first bullet requires a lot more explanation, but let me just go, for example, this one right here. Change the terms to adopt North Korean terminology. So, gunro and nodong, they both mean labor, but gunro means paid labor. You work hard, and you get paid. You get compensated. Nodong means labor that's related to production, which is used in North Korea. They love the terminology so much that they named a missile after it. So why is it so important that terminology be changed to North Korean terminology in the Constitution? And why is the Constitution being changed within a month? It's a sacred document. So there are some interesting events going on in South Korea. So I'm running out of time, so I just want to highlight some of these issues, and I will just leave you with more food for thought. this is some of the other potential changes that they were suggesting, but you know, I will end there and my presentation here and take some questions.
We've got a number of questions here, including one that ended up on the back of a flyer here. Okay. Well, this is one that I think runs through a number of questions. What do you anticipate will be the happening with the Trump-Kim negotiations? It's an easy one to start.
Well, you know, whenever people ask me about what's going to happen in the future, I have the same answer. I forgot to bring my crystal ball. So, you know, that's why we need to look at the motives and, you know, look at some of the language. And we know that Trump was very clear about what he means by denuclearization, which is getting rid of North Korea's nuclear weapons. And as I explained, North Korea, that's not what they mean. That's not what they mean. So, you know, and he wants to be recognized as a nuclear power. So, and then also North Korea plays a lot of word games. So we'll see what the outcome is. But on the other hand, we recently had this, you know, release of the 3 Americans, and so North Korea must have felt something that, you know, they're going to get something by releasing them. You know, so we'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's like worst case scenario. You know, there's a desired part. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I think we'll just have to wait and see.
Sure. Great. This is the kind of maybe the other side of the of this coin. Or, I'm sorry. What do you think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the high side? What are the chances of a U.S.-North Korean war in the next 5 years, and create a scenario where it might happen? Most likely happen. So, let's shot at war between us and the North Koreans, and under what circumstances might it develop? It's an easy one.
Yeah, and I know that this issue came up a few months ago, because it seemed like, oh, are we going to war? You know, and then now it's sort of died down a bit because now we're having these meetings. I think it's more of a question that the public should answer. And you know, I didn't bring my slides about the picture that shows the missile ranges. So let me just go back to the nuclear weapons. North Korea had Scuds, which is short-range nuclear missile, and that can reach Korea, South Korea. It has, you know, Nodong missiles, the other, you know, the labor Nodong missiles, that can reach Japan, and they're both our allies. Now, having said that, you know, it's still not the United States mainland, but North Korea conducted all these missile tests, and it showed that the ranges keep improving and improving. And they actually, the last, you know, few, they showed that it could reach the United States, continental United States, and at least Alaska and Hawaii. But then some of the other ones he tested, it has like 10,000 mile range. That includes Washington, that includes here. So then, the only thing that he hasn't proved is, you know, there's the missile part. Missile is like a car, right? It's a vehicle. You need something on top. That's the nuclear bomb. And try to make it small enough to fit on top of a missile, that's very, very technically challenging. That's the difficult part. And that's the part that we don't think North Korea has yet. But they have made such tremendous progress that, you know, Pompeo, when he was at CIA, you know, their estimate was within the next several months they would have that capability. So if North Korea has that capability, how comfortable are we going to be? Are we going to be, there's some slides I want to show you, knowing that North Korea has that capability. So I think that's something that we have to decide what that's going to be. And okay. Another thing is North Korea, oh, here we go. Actually, that's my slides, that's not going to show. Okay, so I'm just gonna, okay. There are many problems, and I talked about proliferation earlier. Proliferation is another major concern for us. Another is EMP, electromagnetic pulse threat, and basically if North Korea does aerial burst high in the atmosphere, that could create EMP over a large area. And until recently, we had a U.S. EMP commission. They've been doing this for a long time. They did a lot of studies, and they also looked at the Soviet Union data because they actually did practices. And they were estimating up to 90% of Americans would be killed within a year. Well, first of all, imagine your bank, you go to ATM, your ATM doesn't work. Anything electronic won't work. Your cell phone doesn't work, your laptop doesn't work. The refrigerators, no electricity, so that stuff. So then your food spoils at home, but what about all the food that goes to the grocery store, in warehouses? They all spoil. So his main thing was that we will starve to death. So 90% Americans, we have what, 320 million people? That's a huge number. That's beyond the weapons of mass destruction. And let's say that it's not 90%. Let's say it was 10%. 10% of 320 million, that's still 3.5 million. That's way more than, I mean, that's again, that's a lot of people. So long list of things, and they also have done numerous assassinations, kidnappings, and so we have to ask ourselves: how comfortable are we to live with that? The Sony hacking, the Sony attack, that's going to be a lot more frequent, and they're going to be bolder. So are we going to be okay with that? And so, again, I think we just need to ask that question.
Okay. I've got a number of them here to go through. What will be the impact of Trump's pulling out of the Iranian nuclear agreement on the upcoming meeting with North Korea?
Okay, thank you. Another good question. And, I haven't really focused on Iran deal as much. But I think there are two schools of thought on that. One is, well, U.S. signed this deal, and U.S. is now backing out. So is U.S. trustworthy of signing any document? So that's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is that, Trump has said, this is not a good deal, just like NAFTA or anything else, right? He said, this is not a good deal. I'm going to renegotiate it, or I'm going to change it. So if Kim Jong-un is trying to, offer a bad deal, again, it's denuclearization, which is not real denuclearization. If he tries to offer that, he knows that Trump is not going to sign it. It can be seen either way. And I think it's just too soon to tell. We just need to watch what happens.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. How much influence do the Chinese leaders have on Kim Jong-un? And what would China want to see out of a U.S.-North Korean agreement?
So China is a major power, and it has its own national interest when it comes to the Korean Peninsula. And while nuclear weapons in North Korea is a concern for China, it is not its top priority. It's not the top agenda, top concern. Their top concern is the collapse of North Korea, and North Korea no longer being there and having this different system, this liberal democracy on its border. Often that's described as the United States, but South Korea is also a liberal democracy, so they don't want that on its border because China has a one-party system. And we know what happened with Xi Jinping, he is now going to be leader for life. So he doesn't want that kind of, thought, that kind of political system on its border to taint the minds of their people. Because from China's perspective, China has a lot of peripheral problems. So in Tibet and Xinjiang, further west, Taiwan is a big example. They claim Taiwan, but Taiwan is, not going to submit itself to China. So it does not want yet another border peripheral issue by having Korea all the way up in this border, South Korea, or United Korea, all the way up in this border, because there are Koreans, ethnic Koreans living in China near that border. And China is afraid of irredentism. The people sort of demanding that actually we want to join, this good Korea over here. So, so they are looking at it from long-term perspective, and which is why after the collapse of the Soviet Union, so this is like the 90s, they actually commissioned a study called Northeast Asia Project. And what they did was they used scholars, and scholars did a study to claim Goguryeo, that I mentioned in the earlier part of history, as a tribe of China. It is trying to claim this part of the history, again, to give that justification in case this emerges. So they're really looking at it this long term.
Here's one that seems to be asking you to psychoanalyze Kim Jong-un. If out of this whole process and his media exposure, if he comes out of this feeling more legitimatized and part of the world, is he likely to ease up on the organizations that interact with people and the prison system in North Korea?
I'm glad somebody brought up this issue. It's a human rights issue, which is, really should be on the agenda, because suppressing the human rights is part of the way it maintains this regime and the system. North Korea, Kim regime denies the existence of the prison camps. So I think the answer is no. Yeah, in fact, it has a standing order that should there be a war or some sort of contingency, they're supposed to kill all the people in this prison camps to get rid of the evidence. So that's one, again, it just shows that they're very sensitive to any kind of human rights issues. There's a reason for that. And so, but that's something that we should keep bringing up.
Okay. I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to make this the last question, but I know we had dinner last night with Tara, and we talked a bit about South Korea. So this could be your segue briefly into South Korea. Media in the North Korea is state controlled. Is there a free press in South Korea?
A year and a half ago, I would say yes. Now, I would say no. I think about maybe 70 to 80% of South Korean media is controlled by the government. So there are so many things that are going on in South Korea now, such as this, constitutional reform items, which I'm sure you never saw this in English press. And I have not either, not in English. And even in the main media, it's hardly there. And part of the reason is because the Moon administration hasn't really released the details of these. So you have to get pieces from different places. So, it makes one wonder why is there such a control of the media? I mean, controlling the media is one of the most important things to do. And, really makes me wonder, well, that's what North Korea does. That's what China does. Why is South Korea doing this now? So it really makes me wonder. And, as we talk about all these different summits and the outcome, there's more to this. When they talk about unification, then we really have to think, is that good or bad? I mean, is it unification under freedom and democracy, liberal democracy, or is it unification of something that looks like North Korea?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Really